Okay, let's just jump right in. You know when you're watching the news and they cut to a shot of Parliament, and you just find yourself thinking, what do MPs actually do all day? It's a question a ton of us have, and today we're going to unpack the answer, which is way more complex than you might think.
And it really all starts with this one central question. You see the debates on TV, you see all those empty green benches, and it's so easy to feel, well, a little annoyed, right? It's a sight that makes a lot of people scratch their heads, and it's the perfect place for us to start digging.
Now, look, that feeling of frustration is totally understandable. But here's the thing. It all rests on one single, very powerful assumption we make about where an MP's most important work is supposed to get done.
And that assumption is this, that the main chamber is the office, the factory floor, the main stage of politics. So it seems logical, right? If an MP isn't there, they must not be working.
But here's the reality check. The chamber just isn't the primary workplace. And honestly, it can't be. Just picture it for a second. How on earth are 650 people supposed to do detailed, careful, collaborative work all at the same time in the same room, often shouting at each other? It's just not practical for getting real work done.
So that leads us to our first major clue in this whole mystery. The job of an MP isn't one single thing. It's actually a whole collection of different jobs all bundled into one, and they often pull in completely opposite directions. An MP is supposed to be a great public speaker, a sharp technical analyst digging into policy, an administrator, kind of like a social worker for their constituents, and a legal expert who can read incredibly dense legislation. And a lot of that work is quiet, it's technical, and it happens miles away from any TV camera. It's kind of like an iceberg, you know? What we actually see, the speeches, the TV interviews, the votes, that's just a tiny tip. The massive, unseen bulk of the work is all that stuff happening below the surface. The committee meetings, the endless casework for people back home, and the hours and hours spent just reading.
And this brings us to the core concept for this whole explainer. It's a powerful mental shortcut that shapes how we judge politics. It's a phenomenon called the visibility trap. See, the problem is that the real nitty-gritty work of politics is often slow, it's complicated, and it is incredibly hard to measure. Like, how do you measure if an MP made a bad law a little bit better by working away quietly in a committee? It's almost impossible to put a number on that. And when outcomes are hard to see, we humans naturally look for simple shortcuts.
And that's where we get to the absolute heart of the problem. We start to substitute what we can see for what is actually valuable. So visibility becomes a stand-in for actual contribution, not because it's an accurate way to measure things, but just because it's easy to spot. And you can see how this trap plays out in the real world. An MP who looks like they're missing from the chamber might actually be working their tail off in a crucial committee meeting. An MP who seems quiet or inactive could be buried in the slow, painstaking work of improving a new law. From the outside, you just can't tell the difference.
So why is it so easy for all of us to fall into this trap? Well, believe it or not, this isn't just about us, the public, getting it wrong. The confusion is actually baked into the parliamentary system itself.
Get this, there is no formal job description for a member of parliament. I mean, isn't that wild? There's no shared official definition of what doing the job well even means, or how an MP is supposed to balance their time between giving speeches, helping constituents, and scrutinizing laws. That seems like a pretty big oversight, doesn't it? So why has the system never tried to, define the role a bit more clearly? Well, the reasons are actually very human.
First start, it's just awkward to talk about. It feels like micromanagement, and nobody wants to turn Parliament into some KPI factory that's just obsessed with metrics. The system has always worked on this older, kind of gentleman's club idea of good faith, that MPs will just figure it out and regulate themselves. But that old model is really struggling under the pressures of modern politics.
Okay, so this vagueness isn't just some quirky little feature of the system. It has real, tangible consequences for the kind of politics that we all end up getting.
And this quote really nails it. If a system doesn't clearly define what success looks like, it just defaults to rewarding whatever is most visible. The things that are easiest to see become, by default, the things that matter most. And so the system starts sending signals. It rewards all the visible activity over the careful, quiet work. It rewards noise, because noise travels, over the patience you need for good policymaking. And listen, this isn't because MPs are shallow people. It's because they're human beings, and they're responding logically to the incentives the system is giving them.
And I want to be super clear here. The point of this explainer is not to point fingers and say MPs aren't working. It's to understand how a flawed system flattens out every contribution.
It makes it incredibly difficult to tell the difference between an MP who's genuinely not engaged and one who is doing vital but totally invisible work.
So, what this all boils down to is a massive paradox. Our political system is completely dependent on a huge amount of invisible labor to function, but because the system has no language to value that work, no way to protect it, or even talk about it properly, frustration just grows on all sides. From the public, who see empty benches, and from the MPs, who are doing hard work that nobody ever sees or recognizes.
Which leaves us with one last, pretty provocative question. We started by asking why the chamber is so often empty, and now we kind of know. But that answer just opens up a brand new mystery. If the chamber isn't where the real, serious work of Parliament is meant to happen, then where is it? And what happens when that part of the system gets squeezed?